Next month, not this.
You're going to make that report? Yeah, okay.
That's a 17.
Yep.
All right, everyone. We're going to get ready here in 1 second to start our wonderful meeting. All right. So I'd like to start out with announcing that Commissioner LeBlanc is very ill tonight. Commissioner LeBlanc is very ill tonight, and so I'd like the board to excuse her from this meeting. Do I have the board? Yes. Okay. All right. And then if we could do our, yeah, we could do the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, name of the Father. I'm Catholic, so you don't have to do this. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right. So welcome, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 10th. It's 5:01, 5:02 p.m. And we're going to get started. Before we get started, Mr. Slavin, I'd like to apologize to you because we got some bad direction last month from council on letting you speak. And so if you'd like to say anything about that topic right now, I'll allow you to.
Thank you. On that topic only?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just for this moment. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Becker. Well, I would suggest under our Florida Sunshine Law that the action that was taken without proper public comment was null and void and ab initio. So please put it back on a future agenda and revote what I was not allowed to talk about, which was the drainage contract. 3 different items. And I'm really embarrassed that the lawyer who said that, he's a very distinguished lawyer, former Navy captain. He's the former chair of Jacksport. He's a former partner in the law firm of counsel now, and he was just wrong. And it was authoritarian and hierarchical. And let me just say the same thing that I said to our county commissioner, Tom. Oh, I'm sorry. That's, it's let me just say what I said to the county commission chair, Tom Manuel, when he was arrested for bribery in 2008, I think it was. I called him up that night and I said, don't do that again. So I'm glad we have competent advice from Ms. Hodges, and I hope that of counsel guy never comes here again. I mean, he had that so wrong, just absolutely wrong, and there's no excuse for that. He's a very distinguished Florida attorney and well educated. I mean, if it was somebody who went to an unaccredited law school, I'd understand, but he was out of it and he was rude, and that should never happen again. But thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. Slavin.
May
Ms.
I?
Hodges?
Yeah. So just to further, clarify with respect to the record, it was inadvertent counsel. I wouldn't call it bad counsel because it was not given in any malicious or intentful manner. The counsel that attended the last meeting was under the mistaken impression that the first public comment period was a public comment period for non-agenda items and agenda items. So I sit here before you today apologizing to Mr. Slavin on behalf of that counsel, but as Mr. Slavin said, very distinguished, practicing over 30 years, AV rated, I can go on and on and on. I do want to say, just to respond to the comment about the board having to re-vote or reconsider that matter, it's in section 286.0114, which is the section of Florida statutes that talks about or requires public meetings, reasonable opportunity to be heard, attorney's fees, but at the very end of that section, 286 is section 286.0114. It states, under subsection 8, an action taken by a board or commission which is found to be in violation of this section is not void as a result of that violation. So my counsel to you is you can choose to do that if you want, but by statute, if you refuse to allow the public comment that you should have allowed, it does not void that action, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Did we approve the agenda?
No.
Okay, I think I
Okay. And you know what we also didn't do? Roll call.
Well,
Well, let's do
Commissioner-
roll call.
Commissioner Mazzata is present.
Commissioner Gardner is present.
All right, Commissioner LeBlanc is granted an absence, and Commissioner Becker is present. Yeah. Only my third meeting. We'll get it. We'll get it.
And
All right.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, we'll do the regular agenda first.
Regular, gotcha.
So I have one motion on the floor to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second, and all those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Unanimous? All right. And now for the consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
No, citizen participation for items not on the agenda is number 5.
Where is that?
Where, I'm
Through the
sorry?
chair, you might not have the, do you want? Yeah, I think you don't.
Thank you. All right, there we go. Now I can see this. Okay. Number 5, citizen participation for items not on the agenda. Mr. Slavin, and do you have a card filled out?
Yes, ma'am.
Last month I didn't get any cards. Or are you giving them to Miss Heather? Okay. Okay.
Always. Thank you. Good afternoon. Ed Slavin, Box 3084, candidate for Anastasia Mosquito Control District, Seat 4. Want to call your attention to the email that I sent you all yesterday. Please add to the agenda today the monthly financial report. It should never be on the consent agenda. Number 2, please add the DVEC Mosquito Museum cost overruns, 41%, including the status of the museum completion and cost overruns. Currently stand at 41% over the original budget. 3, reforming district contracting procedures. 4, draft 2026 AMCD.
Mr. Slavin, could you turn off your ringer, please?
Sure.
That way they can hear you using the microphone.
Sorry. Okay. Please stop the clock. All right. Reforming district contracting procedures. 4, draft 2026 AMCD budget. That needs to be on the agenda today. 5, independent auditor selection committee, a state requirement avoided and evaded by AMCD. 6, etiology of the Friend of the City of St. Augustine status conferred on Chair Becker on St. Augustine Facebook page on April 4th, 2025 at 4 p.m. after I signed up to run for her seat. 7, evaluation of the district's whistleblower protection policy, complaint procedure, and compliance with non-discrimination laws. 8, please vote to remedy the district's non-compliance with my 2024 to 2025 open records requests. 9, please agree to mediation by Florida Assistant Attorney General Pat Gleason, Special Counsel for Open Government, of my records requests. AMCD still hasn't responded. Now, I would say that silence gives consent, but would y'all just take a vote today to agree to mediation? 10, please vote to refrain from ever again informing the public that the DVEC Museum and AMCD is within budget, as it's materially false and misleading. 11, please place on our agenda a report on the status of the State Attorney General opinion regarding board members returning their illegally received bonuses for the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year. And finally, please place on our agenda a motion for the board to instruct the SGR law firm to look into allegations of pay-to-play involving Dr. Hsu. There have been allegations by former commissioners that Dr. Shu allegedly paid or offered to pay commissioners in cash or offered them district positions in exchange for their support of his continued employment or for voting in a specific manner. Additionally, there are allegations that current board members may have received cash or had personal expenses covered by Dr. Shu to secure their loyalty. We expect better from our government. It's our government. And we need to do the right thing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, but we could do better. And this board was much better run when Jeannie Moeller was here, and I miss her deeply. Some of these things would never have happened if she had still been on the board. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
Said.
Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to number 1, unfinished business, which is our budget amendments on the,
Yeah, through the chair.
Consent agenda.
Yeah, the consent agenda.
I'm really all over the place. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so do we have approval of the consent agenda? Do we have a motion first for consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Anything else?
No.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? All right, now we're gonna move to number 8, unfinished business. Budget amendments. Say it in the microphone.
So if I
I don't
have-
want people to think we're.
Yeah, if I have a question about the finance report, just like a statement, would
You
that
could ask
be-
it when there's.
Sure.
Okay.
They're gonna be
okay.
talking about the
Yeah.
finances.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the,
I didn't know.
in the
maybe better
district
now,
policies,
maybe- okay.
that is, the monthly reports are reports, so they're not supposed to be in the, we'll figure it out.
10-4.
I can also give you my direct number, Commissioner Mazzata, if you ever want to call me, go over stuff, I'm pretty good
Okay, that would be good. Yeah, I'm planning on coming and
Yeah.
visiting with everybody,
Okay,
learn a little bit more.
sure,
Looking forward to that.
thanks. Scott Hanna, Anastasia Mosquito Control District CFO. It's had a few budget amendments, and they were, the first one, which is part of operating expenses, 2 of them are other contract services. We have the attorney, 7 months times $600. That's the number I was furnished with between the director and the lit law firm.
6,000. not
6,000 per month, yes, ma'am. And then the lobbyist, I got a number of 6 months times 4,000, not to exceed. That was actually in the last meeting, not to exceed $24,000. And then the last item is the turbine engine repair for $113,209.64. The staff, when they did the bid opening, recommended Catarath, and that is actually all in the consent agendas, which everybody approved. So that's everything for the budget amendment. If there are any questions.
And just while we're talking about that, Ralph, do you want to
Yeah.
say anything about it? Or did you get the engine yet? For the parts?
That's why you came here. Thanks.
So Mr. Ralph is our wonderful aerial manager and has been hard at work. And we had a little snafu with the engine part.
Ralph Bruner, Anastasia Mosquito Control Aviation Manager. I just got back from South Florida to our fly-in. I just got back about an hour ago.
Oh, wow.
So I drove all the way back.
Ow.
What it boils down to is when we had the sudden stoppage inspection done by another shop, they went through and signed off saying that everything had been completed per the FAA guidelines requirements. This has to be done. And an airworthy directive is the federal government has come out and found that this certain particular part on this particular aircraft is a reoccurring problem. So we're going to make it mandatory. You have to fix it. Here's our guidelines to fix it. The shop in Texas didn't quite go far enough. They should have repaired it then. So now the engine is grounded, so now we have an aircraft that is grounded. The company that we chose was not the lowest bid, nor was it the highest bid, but they're going to do a lot of extra stuff that the engine would have to come out in another 2 to 3 years, send off and have it redone. Now we're good for about another 6 or 7 years. So they're going to change out the parts that are required and necessary, do some extra inspections, change out a couple of extra items, and we're going to get an engine that's probably going to be good for another 10 years.
And that's from, that's Cataract.
Cataract, correct, sir. That's in Louisiana. I'm sorry?
Out of Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they are very, very known and very trustworthy. So that's a good company.
Yeah, like I said, when this came up, I called around to a couple of other places and, told them, some people I deal with, and I'll give you an example. There's Heroes. There's H period, E period. They're out in Arizona.
Okay.
Ralph, we did your last engine. We'd love to do it, but it's going to set for 8 months before we can touch it. There's another place in Pennsylvania called Keystone. Great people, good job. We can't touch it for 6 months. Try calling Cataract. I said, okay. And they came in and got it where it needs to be. Their turnaround time is probably going to be about 45, somewhere in the major 45 to 75 business days. Keep that in mind. It's not calendar days. But when I talked to them, they said they would try and get it done as quickly as possible. So that's where we're at.
Is it a surveillance, larvicide, or adulticide?
This is the adulticide bird. Another long story short, Dr. Hsu said he wanted to hit heavy this year on the larvicide. Had a good engine in it. We pulled that engine out of the adulticide, which had a good engine. We swapped, and we got him set up for everything he wants to do. So we're good to go on everything right now. We're ready to press forward
Okay.
and get out there and become professional. I can't say that.
Well, thank you for your leadership.
Is there any
Ralph.
questions? Anybody got any concerns or anything?
No, I want to get with you as well, though. I'm going to set up a meeting.
Come see me next week. I'll be there all week.
Okay.
It's appreciated. Thank you,
Thank you,
folks.
Ralph.
The aerial team is really doing a great job, and they also did an excellent job hosting the workshop that we had a couple hundred people here, so we took up all of their space. They couldn't do their work very well because we were hogging it, but they were very nice. All right, so we do have our budget amendments.
Through the chair.
Okay, all right.
Through the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Hodges?
So I don't know if you would prefer me to do it at this point in the meeting, but part of the budget amendment was my attorney's fees. And so I don't know if you need any explanation as to what I've been working on for the past 90 days, or if you prefer me to report on that in my attorney's report.
I think
But
now's
have
a
been
great
pretty
time,
busy.
if you'd
That's what I
like.
thought,
Yeah,
since
thank you.
it impacts your approval of this amendment. So I wanted to just let you know, in the past 3 months, I've spent a lot of time, as you know, working on several contracts for the district, trying to get your contracts in what I believe is a standard government form. I've worked on, obviously, the lobbyist contract, the HR consulting contract, the groom contract, the mosquito mate contract, the frontier contract having to do with your software system. And, this obviously requires work because in each of these instances, I'm starting from scratch and I'm adding and having to create contract templates. What I hope is that we can get to a place where I can start on the front end, working with your staff in terms of the solicitation requests for proposal documents that they're using that includes the right terms in that document so that when somebody bids on any of your work, they're placing a bid and already accepting your contract terms, which would always be friendly to the government entity. You're a government entity, so there's some things you can actually demand when you're dealing with your vendors, like, indemnification and things like that. So I haven't gotten there yet, and so, but that is something that's on the list. Of course, I've also been working on revising the way that items are presented to you in your board packet. So we came out with the last meeting for the first time, the memo, so that it's streamlined and it has the verbiage that you need to actually do a motion. And then whenever you're approving contracts, the goal would be to have a resolution, so that is very clear what you're approving, and we're attaching that actual approved contract. You know, the other work that I've been doing, of course, is research and work on the auditor selection committee, the travel policy, looking at your current policies, trying to ascertain what needs to be updated. And so what you see is in the month of January, my very first month, I'm spending 39 hours. I probably could have spent double that, but we've got to, you know, cap your costs, right? The month of February, I spent 47 hours, but in the month of March, it drops off to 24 hours. And so what I basically sent to Dr. Shu, and I don't believe, and maybe you did, you included this in the board packet, was sort of an estimate for the remainder of this year at a minimal 10 months, 10 hours a month. So 10 hours a month is $37.50, okay? I can tell you right now, you have more than 10 hours of legal work a month. But that is the budget that I presented to Dr. Shu. And so I think he baked in additional 20 hours or so to account for policies and contracts. But it takes me 10 hours. I just want to be full and frank. It takes me 10 hours at least to get through a board packet, comment on the board packet, draft resolutions, look at the write-ups, attend the meetings, attend special committee meetings. That's at least 10 hours a month alone. The minute you start adding in drafting of policies, looking at contracts or drafting contracts, that's just additional time. Later on, you know, in the meeting in my attorney's report, we'll talk about coming up with the bonus plan for the employees, for example. That would be outside of the 10 months. So I just didn't want you to think from a legal perspective that I'm over here twiddling my thumbs. I'm not. And there's much work to be done at this district, and hopefully when we come back next year and we talk about what the district's comfortable with, are you comfortable with just 10 hours a month? Or do you want a little bit more proactive legal services, which is what I told you when you actually approved me as your counsel? So, you know, that's a little bit of color as to how we got to this number, why we're having to add more money into the legal category. It all ties back to the work that I've been doing, much of behind the scenes. Any questions about that?
Any
Makes
questions?
perfect sense.
Well, I'd just like to thank you for doing all the work. I know that federal and state statutes change all the time, and you have to be, up to date on all of those and ensure that we're up to date for taxpayers. And so I think it's money well spent because you're putting us in the right direction. So thank you for your hard work. So do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment for
I'll motion to increase the budget, to amend that.
and that'll be,
As needed.
it's the
Do we need to?
85,069.37.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve a budget amendment to the state for $85,069.37?
Motion.
One motion. Do I have any other comments? Do we have
Question?
a public comment?
Yes. Ed Slavin, box 3084. On the engine, has Learned Counsel reviewed the contract, and do we know whether or not there was a breach of warranty by the vendor that apparently maybe overcharged us or didn't do what was expected? And are we going to revise our contracts accordingly in the future?
I'm not sure. I think Ralph probably has all that information and he can give it to the legal.
At this point in time, I have not received any assignment to review a helicopter contract, but I am happy to do that.
Could we hold this in abeyance until learned counsel can review it? I'm thinking if the vendor didn't comply with their contract, we shouldn't give them one more dime, and maybe we have a remedy under contract law.
Well, it's a different vendor, and it was also several years back.
Could we review that, please?
Sure,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. And Ralph will look into any warranty situations that we can get back. Okay, so unfinished business number 2. Ms. Hodges is going to be giving us a presentation on ethical training. And this is not the same kind of ethical training as the 4 hours we are required to do a year.
So forward is going to be the bottom, but yeah, it's on.
Got it. I need to point anything. Okay, awesome. All right. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate this. I will circulate this PowerPoint after because I like to have your full attention. It's like if I give you the PowerPoint, then you'll be reading it while I'm presenting. So learned that trick over the years. Okay, so really, I'm going to go really quick, and my main point is to give you enough information where you know when you need to come and talk to me or ask, Dr. Shu a question about ethics. So really, this presentation, I am highlighting danger areas when it comes to government ethics. As we go through these slides, I want you to also know that there's a difference between sort of what we think of personal ethics versus the government ethics, because, in our personal ethics, you may be familiar with, the golden rule, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. That's an important rule that we should also follow. But government ethics is really more narrower than that. It's really getting at corruption. Heather, I think. Heather? I don't know what I did. I'm pressing buttons. Okay. It's really,
There we go.
hold up. Sorry. No. I did. I think I did. Am I going the right direction? How do I? Up. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Here. Okay. So government ethics is really getting at corruption. That narrow, sort of. So what you'll have in government ethics is we have laws that specifically tell us what is or is not permitted, which is a lot narrower than the broad sort of, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So the first danger topic we're going to talk about, or topic that you should be cautious of, has to do with gifts. And so I have a, scenario here. You have a friend since kindergarten that is a district consultant, meaning this friend has a contract with the district. He sees you and your spouse at Ruth's Chris and offers to pay for your birthday dinner. Can he pick up your tab? Intuitively, you're shaking your head. You're correct about that because there are specific gift laws that prohibit you accepting gifts from lobbyists or vendors. And, you can accept a gift up to anything that exceeds $100. So when this has happened with some of my former clients, if you took a gift from a lobbyist, you're going to pay it down to the $99 threshold level. But my counsel would be, just don't do it. Right? Just don't accept any gift from a lobbyist. We have a lobbyist, or any lobbyist, and any gift from one of your vendors, anybody that has a contract with the district. So here's the rule. Do not accept gifts from anyone doing business with or lobbying the district. Gifts over $100 at a time or $250 in a year are prohibited. Even a gift under monetary restriction could end up on the front page. I mean, these are just, things that really my goal is to not have you on the front page, unless it's good news, not for any sort of ethics issue. Gifts that come into the district and are shared by everyone get reported to gifts to the district. So around Christmas time, somebody wants to give some candy, they could gift that to the district, and Dr. Shu could take that and let all the employees sort of eat from it. But you really get into trouble when you're personally being handed a gift. There are implications that come along with that. So, kind of what you need to know there is anytime somebody's giving you something for free, it could be the smallest of trinkets, you need to pick up the phone and call me or call Dr. Shu and he'll call me. But that's the type of thing that should always be going through your mind, because you're commissioners and you kind of never know why people will get to some other rules, what motives could be for people getting you gifts, hoping to influence. So if you are, for example, offered tickets to a football game, including access to a private suite, what are the questions that you should ask? Somebody comes up to you, we've got a Jaguars game, Commissioner Mazzato, hey, I've got some tickets, you want to come with me?
What do I have to do for you?
What are some of those questions that you should ask before?
Do I have to do something in return?
Yeah, you accept the gift. So let's go through some quick questions that determines important factors when you're looking at when you get gifts. What's the value of the gift? Remember, I talked about that threshold amount, right? You can accept it, but if it's over $100, then that's a no-no. So you've got to pay it down to where it's $99. Will I be influenced, or does this person want something from me? If the very person that's handing you the tickets knows that a contract is coming up for a vote at the next meeting, that should give you some pause. And then, is it a vendor or a lobbyist? And by the way, these rules don't just apply to you as commissioners. They also apply to Dr. Shu and all of the employees of the district. Okay. All right, asking for things. So we have rules in Florida statutes, that little notation there, that you shouldn't ask for anything of value from someone for you, your family, your business associate, or friends. So that's just something that you don't do as an elected official, an officer, employee. Disclosing confidential information, you as commissioners, you actually have access to some information that the normal public wouldn't have access to. For example, if one of your, let's say Mr. Hanna, your CFO, was putting out an RFP to hire somebody to help with financials, somebody other than your auditor, just anything having to do with the job duties of Mr. Hanna. You may be privy to that because he could show you the RFP document. And that would be an example of information in that document that you're getting specifically because of your position. And so then if you knew a friend that was in the business of the very service that we're trying to solicit business for, you would be prohibited from disclosing that confidential information. Okay, so just, and there may not be many situations like this for you, but just, there's information that you do get as a commissioner that is only meant for you, and it would be, in that case, an unfair competitive advantage for you to go off and share that information with other people, members of the public. So disclosing confidential information, a little bit more granular. Do not share confidential information. Do not use the district's resources for your personal benefit for you or others. So I have EQD there. It should be districts. So the district is getting ready to put out requests for proposal for construction and repair services. And your sister's company, this is a relative, would be perfect for the job. Her company does great work. Of course, you would say that because it's your sister's company. And this work is right in their wheelhouse. However, because she is your sister, you decide to avoid any conflict of interest and not mention it to her at all. While the two of you are out, however, she casually asks who you believe the top ranked firm will be and if you would recommend her for the job. Okay. What if she, so let's see, what's the answer to that question? Can you recommend her? That's a clear no, right? Thank you for that. But what if she just asks you for a copy of the bid specs? Is that something you can do? Yes, right? So because the bid specs are, well, let's say it depends, right? If it's already being advertised, it's already out on the street. If it's not being advertised, if it's open, yeah, it's already out on the street. The best response there, to be honest, because here's the thing, I mean, you're commissioners, and so Dr. Shu, you guys are constantly doing things that may be competitive bids. You may have that information. It's totally okay to point people to your website or refer people to the procurement person that's in charge, right? So that they have the information to be able to submit to a bid. So I think in this case, it really kind of depends, right, or where we are in the procurement process as to whether it would be appropriate to give her a copy of the bid specs. Pre-advertisement on the street, no. It's already out there on the street. Yeah, let me refer you to Dr. Shu, and he can point you to where you can get a copy of the specs so that you can respond. Okay, misuse of position. If you are running late for the meeting today and you got pulled over by a police officer, would it be okay for you to say to the officer, you are on AMCD business and you're in a hurry? Think that's okay or probably not okay?
It's okay to tell them that.
Yeah, exactly. Factually, you are in a hurry, but it just depends on how you say it, because what this rule in ethics, misuse of position, is getting at is, and let's go through the actual qualifiers, using your public position for personal gain of you, family, friends, or business associates is prohibited. You've got to follow the same process as every other citizen. So really this last bullet is it just depends on how what your tone is, what you're implying when you're talking to the officer. But if, you get pulled over and you're like, Chair Becker, do you know who I am, Officer X? Do you know I am the chair of mosquito? Obviously, you can't do that. And that's exactly what this rule is getting. I mean, some of this stuff is very obvious, but sometimes it's not as obvious.
That
Really?
happened in Flagler County to the Board of Commissioners.
There you go.
Last
See?
year.
And that's the best thing when we have local examples.
Don't
'cause-
you know who I am?
Right, it happens. It totally happens. And that probably would be the instinct of many of us, if we're being honest, to be like, do you know who I am? But it's not that we're meaning it in a negative way, but again, government ethics is getting at misuse, corruption, those types of things. Okay, so let's quickly talk about conflicts of interest. You have gotten training on this danger area, but hopefully these examples, may bring it home. You have conflicts. It is how you deal with them that's important. You have little conflicts versus huge conflicts. So voting conflicts in the legal world, we like to think of those as little conflicts. Why are they little conflicts? Not because they're important, because you can actually cure them by doing certain things. You can abstain from voting, disclose the interest that you have at the public meeting on the record, and you're supposed to fill out specific forms that are dictated by the Commission on Ethics, the Florida Commission on Ethics. So that's how but it's a curable conflict. And then you have prohibitive conflicts, which are the big conflicts. It's a big deal if it's a prohibitive conflict, because you have to either end your private interest or resign from your position on the board. So whenever attorneys, we're always listening for fact patterns where it's a prohibitive conflict, because those types of conflicts really, for one, are very fact intensive. It could turn on one fact. And so usually that's a process where that's a drill down, where you come to me with the scenario. It might take months for us to be able to figure out, and we may end up having to write into the Florida Commission on Ethics. I've done that plenty of times for past clients. But I just want you to be aware when you hear me use the term prohibitive conflict, that's a big deal because that's a conflict where some fact has got to change because it's prohibited altogether by the Florida statutes. Okay, so legally, you or your family may not do business with the district. So if some of you had your own separate business and you're doing business, so Commissioner Mazzato, Inc. has a contract to perform services for the district, that's exactly the prohibitive conflict that would not be allowed. And that makes sense because the law assumes that you cannot sit up in your seat as a commissioner and oversee your own self having a contractual relationship with the district. The law assumes you're probably going to favor yourself, right, and trying to be objective. The other prohibitive conflict here is you may not have an employment or contractual relationship with the company that's doing business with the district. I mean, again, what that looks like is now it's your own company, but it's your employer that has a contract with the district. You sitting up there as a commissioner, the law assumes that you're going to favor your employer because you're employed. And so you're going to have that torn interest between the public interest and keeping your job. And so that's a conflict that the law says it doesn't matter what your salary is, it doesn't matter that you're only making $10K a year, it doesn't matter. It's the relationship begets a conflict in the law, and so you can't have it. Now, there are a whole slew of exemptions under the statutes that, in single source, we talked about doing business with your own agency. Commissioner Mazzato's company has a contract. That's actually allowed if you're the only business in town that can perform that services. So there are emergency, exemptions, special exemptions for elected officials who work for nonprofits. So, but the point is, I'm sort of going over this so that you know what questions to ask and when to come to me to ask a question. Okay, so the last point, if allowable, best to have your district attorney okay it first. All right. So I kind of went over this, but so you have your own consulting business and you want to bring a bid on a project managed by the district. Can you do this? The answer, just based on what I told you, would be no, unless I identify an exemption for you. Okay? So the voting conflicts, you vote on, go ahead.
On that slide, did you mean if in the town, did that mean that?
The district.
Example,
Yes.
Okay, so he would perform services for another town and that? It was
No,
for the district.
that should be
Okay.
district. So that's an example of, again, you have a consulting firm and that firm is doing business with the town. Now, if you have your own, but that's a great question. If you have your own company and they're performing services with other entities, that scenario may be fine. But really what the law is getting at is whenever there's a connection between the agency that you sit on, because that's the agency that you control. That's the agency where, you influence the policy, you influence, whether or not you're going to accept the contract in the first place. So other governmental entities in other counties, totally fine to do that work, but the minute you start doing work, particularly with your district, then that becomes a problem. So you vote on any matter from which you or your family, your business associates might economically benefit or lose. So with the voting conflict, a lot of times people confuse the prohibitive conflicts with the voting conflicts. The voting conflicts are really just about the pecuniary gain, the monetary gain. So literally the vote on the matter is going to cause you or your family member, and the family members is, it's not like your second or third cousin down the line. It's got to be, your spouse, your children. There's a definition for family with respect to voting conflicts. Your business associates may lose money or gain money. And if you have a voting conflict, again, what the law says is you just can't vote on that matter, and that makes sense. But there are rules that you've got to follow to declare that vote fill out paperwork, give it to the minute taker, pretty much, and, you're fine there. So another scenario, the AMC board is getting ready to vote on a services contract submitted by a client for whom you perform part-time consulting work. Can you vote on that matter? So in this case, yeah, exactly. No, for all the reasons we just went over and we stated. You're clearly going to be partial to your client. And so that's why you can't do it. Or I shouldn't say clearly. The law assumes you likely will. Okay, so this is the last slide. And I just, here I just want to point out, we already talked about this last one, misuse of position. This is the actual verbiage that's in the statute. So I'll read that really quick. The last sub 6, this is 112.313. Subsection 6 of the statutes, misuse of public position, no public officer, employee of an agency or local government attorney, so I'm also bound, by these rules, shall corruptly use or attempt to use his or her official position or any property or resource which may be within his or her trust or perform his or her official duties to secure a special privilege, benefit, or exemption for himself, herself, or others. Okay, so that's the misuse of position. Most people will gloss over this, but when it says shall corruptly use, that's actually a pretty high bar. There's case law, of course, that dissects all of the language here, and the term corrupt really means you've got to have willful intent. So it's kind of a high bar to meet. So then we have, just going from the bottom moving up, there's unauthorized compensation. No public officer, employee of an agency or local government attorney or his or her spouse or minor child shall at any time accept any compensation, payment, or thing of value when such public officer, employee, or local government attorney knows or with the exercise of reasonable care should know that it was given to influence a vote or other action in which the officer, employee, or local government attorney was expected to participate in his or her official capacity. So if somebody's coming up to you with, again, some Jaguar tickets, and hey, and it's I'm making this up. This is not true at all. In fact, I was going to say, and it's the lobbyists, right? Because we just approved the lobbyist contract. Hey, some Jaguar tickets, and close in time, notice how the law says or with the exercise of reasonable care, should know. So it's not enough to blindly say, I didn't know. It's like the law is like, well, you should have known that this is somebody who you're about to approve a contract with, and now they're giving you a gift. So, so just, kind of keep that in mind. And then the other one, the last one here that really pertains to soliciting or accepting gifts, no public officer, employee of an agency, local government attorney, or candidate for nomination or election shall solicit or accept anything of value to the recipient, including a gift, loan, reward, promise of future employment, favor, or service based upon any understanding. So this is where the two parties would have an understanding that the vote, official action, or judgment of the public officer, employee, local government attorney, or candidate would be influenced thereby. Okay, so, you get this training every year. This is just meant to highlight the takeaway today is not to memorize any of this. The takeaway is to give you enough information to be able to issue spot and know when you should come to me and ask a question. And I would always err on the side of, as soon as you get somebody's like, hey, I've got this eraser. I'm gonna give you 5 free erasers. Please call me. I welcome your call so that I can quickly do that analysis and say, oh, those erasers are probably under this amount or whatever. I don't mind. It's always much better to have it vetted, because in instances where it's not vetted, then you find yourself, you might say, what are the ramifications? Well, ethics complaint, we're in front of the Florida Ethics Commission. Even if you are absolved of any sort of allegations, it's still the time, it's still the newspaper articles, and so on and so forth. So just err on the side of calling me. I think I went past my 10 minutes, but 10 minutes, 10 minutes over, well spent, I hope. Okay, that's it. Any questions?
Do you guys have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Awesome.
I do.
Oh.
So I'm trying to think of any times where we would go, I don't know if I could take that. And the only thing I can think of is when we attend our regional and national events, and sometimes even local events, like our arbovirus workshop, where there are vendor tables and
Yeah.
they give out a tennis ball or a frisbee or
Yeah.
some candy.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable for us to take? Or is that a gift?
That is a good question.
If it's
Yeah.
open to everyone, I don't know, because I don't want to take any water bottles if we're not supposed to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sitting here today, I don't want to give you an answer, right? I want to sit down and talk Dr. Shu. I want to get into some, nuances there. What are they giving? Are these vendors that have contracts with us, right? Because that was one of the keys. They're the district's vendors, and maybe some of these people are, maybe they're not. I think there's some facts there that I probably need to drill in, and so that'll be one of my takeaways to kind of look at that. But this is a question you should always ask.
Vendor
Yeah.
things in our.
I mean, this is a question you should ask. I mean, if it's nobody's, obviously when they're setting up a table, they're not targeting you, right? They're targeting whoever shows up.
Whoever walks by.
Right, exactly. They're
kind of
targeting
thing,
you.
but,
Right,
yeah.
so I would suspect that would be fine, because what I was talking about was they're handing it to you because they're expecting something in exchange for it, like the typical quid pro quo.
If it was,
Um,
here's this hat because you're the commissioner.
Yeah, but
that
I
would
do
be
think-
different than us just
I
walking
appreciate
by.
it.
and
Yeah.
I'm taking some swag.
It's
Correct.
mostly for promotion with the local name, telephone contact.
Yeah, but
Promotion.
honestly, the question that you're asking though is not a bad one. I think the district should always simply ask that question and not assume that, oh, they're just giving out little trinkets, so there's no reason for us to have to do any analysis. I think this is always an analysis that we should do every time somebody's on, giving out things for free. In that case, just drive-by advice. That's probably totally fine. But I would like to, I haven't, speaking of the list of attorneys things, you do have some ethics provisions in your own policy, but I haven't had a chance to dig into that, but that's one of the things I would like to do. And so, Dr. Shu, you and I could talk about that a little bit more in terms of all those possible scenarios that may impact the gift laws.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything better than a water bottle. So. They start giving out TV.
That's going to be under 100.
The caller
Thank you,
on
Ms.
that one.
Hodges.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move along to new business. And Dr. DiCarlo is going to come and give us an update on our wonderful education center.
Wait for the presentation to come up, but I know I've met all of you individually, but formally I'm Dr. Joseph DeClaro. I'm the science manager at AMCD. Spent 33 years in the Navy, retired, and then came and been here less than a year.
Thank you for your service.
So no, thank you for your support and your continued support. So this presentation was originally supposed to be presented by Jency, our DVET coordinator. Unfortunately, they had a family tragedy, and our hearts and our prayers go out to their family during this very terrible time. However, I wish I could give the same enthusiasm and the same passion that Jency gives when she gives this talk. So unfortunately, I'm at a disadvantage. Although I do love the DVEC, she is really the beating heart of it as the coordinator. So I would like to, verbally tell you that she's doing a fantastic job. So having said that, this presentation was given at the workshop. It's just an overview of the first year. The workshop marked the first year of the DVEC. If I can get the slide. There it goes. So this presentation highlights just some of the data that we collected over the first year. We call it milestones, but it's more of like a process of what has happened over the past year. The first thing I want to highlight, though, is this information that we're about to give when we talk about visitors data. It was actually from March 26th till March 22nd, 2025, so 24 to 25. If we were to keep this tally up, even the week after that, every week you add about 100 more people, even at our lowest numbers. So just keep that in mind when I tell you that in the first year there's been over 11,000 people. That is at that is at the March 22nd, and so you could add, and we're probably closer to 12,000, if not over it by now, since these numbers were taken. Now, out of those numbers, just the general public, there's been 10,000, and then we have education events. And we just pulled them apart because, you know, during operation hours, anyone can walk in, it's free. You know, and in the first year, we really had no advertising. So it's pretty impressive that the general public started to come in such large numbers. But then we also offer the education events for schools, senior groups. We've had just a variety of different organizations take advantage of using our facility to, you know, for STEM or just for general knowledge. Now, in the first few months of this opening, we did have an intern that was working on a master's that conducted a survey. We wanted 3 major questions answered. You know, was it your first visit? You know, how'd you hear about us? Because remember, we weren't advertising. And then, you know, do you live in St. John's? That's an important question. And what was fascinating, and me being a new guy, I was kind of interested because within the first few months, we already had like 20% of our visitors coming back for a second or third and sometimes fourth visit, which is pretty impressive. And not to mention, I expected, how did you hear about us? I expected social media to be a much bigger part of the pie. But it was actually word of mouth. Over 60% of the population that visited the DVEC, it was just word of mouth, family, friends. And that was pretty surprising. But more importantly, almost 70% were St. John's residents. So it means the residents are actually utilizing the facility.
That's fantastic.
So having said that, and you know, some of this is fairly new. I think the brochure, I'd have to look at the exact date, but it's only a few months old since we started distributing it. The website, I think, is maybe coming up on 2 months, as well as the social media for the DVEC. And this is all separate from the normal AMCD social media footprint. So, of course, Instagram, Join the Buzz DVC, or Join the Buzz DVC. It only has 20 followers, probably a little bit more now, and it's only had a few posts. There's also the Facebook page, a beautiful website. So for our, you know, our digital footprint, it's growing and it's becoming very visually pleasing, and people, you know, we anticipate them starting to use it because as our pamphlet, Sandy, our volunteer ambassador, she has been very instrumental in getting the brochure out at the hotels and other brochure racks to make sure that people are getting the word, you know, about the center that don't necessarily use, you know, social media. But we also have these activities that are happening through the week. We have these upcoming events, and although we generate these nice flyers and we post them over in the DVEC, of course our social media platforms give us the opportunity to actually hit a wider audience. So maybe people can plan to say, hey, they're doing this at the DVEC. Let's go learn something and do it in a fun way.
And you can make events on there too, like specific events for those.
Yes, absolutely. And I can definitely say that's where Gen C's creativity really shines. Which brings us to the program development. In this program development, we had some learning curves at the beginning. There was several ideas that we brainstormed. There were several things that we kind of talked about. But the idea was to make something fun, something unique to the center, something educational, as well as something that is sustainable. So the DVEC team developed these passports, and they have this like little scavenger hunt. And there's what I kind of admire of this is, one, it changes like every 6 months, and it's when the kids do it, there's different age ranges, and they earn a sticker. And when they get 4 stickers, they completed that passport. And it's actually, it's very popular. And the fact that there's more than one, there's a set of, there's 4 different versions of each age group. They're actually able to come back to the DVEC. It gives them the chance to go look at the displays. They see something and spend some time there looking for whatever item they are, but they actually take the time to maybe learn something as well. So we were talking about the activities that get posted on social media. Wednesday through Saturday, there is a kind of a theme for the week. There's always some, like scientific theme that Gen C and the team will like really focus on. But there's also like some very standard activities like feeding the gambusia fish, which is actually way more popular than I thought it would be. Feeding mosquito larvae to gambusia fish, the kids, we could have nothing else but the helicopter and the aquarium, and I think the kids would be happy just for the activity. But it does give us a chance to tell them about biological control, natural ways to control mosquitoes, and it gives us the opportunity to have that outlet. And then, of course, Sunday is Sunday Fun Day, which has been very popular, which is usually a very creative, arts and craft type activity with a science theme. Now, during the week, we are closed Monday and Tuesday, and we typically use that for when we need repairs or contractors to come in. But we also use it for a chance for schools to bring in their larger groups, and they kind of get the DVEC to themselves for a couple of hours. It's been very successful. We do take schools in the rest of the week, but sometimes bus schedules and other issues prevent them from coming any other day but Monday or Tuesday. So it's nice for us because they can come in, we can have one-on-one time with students. The teachers seem to enjoy it. And we usually can do 2-hour slots, so we do one in the morning and one in the afternoon if needed. And Tomomi, our education specialist, runs those Monday through Tuesday, but also assists the rest of the week. Oh, sorry, there was pictures here. Now, since it's opened, it's been through a period of construction completions. I've actually watched a lot of this come in. When I first got here, there was a lot of yellow signs that said under construction. I'm actually, the timeline blew me away. It's really Disney quality design work. But it's almost, I would say there's a few things still left, which I'll point out in just a moment, but it's really becoming a more of a facility that people can come to repeatedly and probably see something new. And of course, this is some of the pending items. The signage on the outdoor bee colony, or the bee display, and the mosquito history display box is not as labor intensive as the specimens. When we talk about specimens, first we have to acquire certain specimens of medical or public health importance. That can be a challenge in itself. Luckily, groups like the CDC and other academia have been able to send us specimens, but sometimes it requires us, or Gen C specifically, to sit behind a microscope and actually curate each specimen so it can go into a display case. So, and then the maintenance of that is one specimen deteriorates, you have to get a replacement, go through the same process. So future plans, as Gen C says, she wants to keep the momentum going. We do a lot of brainstorming. We're collaborating with local groups. We recently had the Guano Reserve bring a group of UF students out that we utilized the DVEC as part of, or the central piece of their visit. We're looking at getting certifications or more certifications, like a certified autism center. And as our partnership with other collaborations for training, where we offer CEU training, we're looking at other possibilities of using the center to continue curriculums that will be CEU or able to give CEUs for like other mosquito control districts, pest control companies. We have one coming up in our collaboration with Gulf South is for veterinarians and ectoparasites. So we're hoping to keep that going and come up with new ideas that can keep the center relevant and sustainable for years to come. So Jen C in her presentation is always quick to thank everybody else and acknowledge everybody else, especially Richard Weaver, who's pretty much put blood, sweat, and tears into getting it to where it is now. But I'd like to also acknowledge Jen C for all her hard work. So, but that's all I have if you don't have any questions. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Doctor.
Well, it was thrilling to hear this presentation, and
Very good.
Gen Z does a phenomenal job. Every time I come here, I go and talk to all the families, and many of them are, oh, we come here every Wednesday. We've been here 20 times. We've been here 50 times. The state park guy that drove all the way from New York to come see the place. I mean, that's wild. And we have two former commissioners here that helped start it, so I hope you all are as thrilled with the center as we are. But thank you for your hard work. All right. So now let's go on to discuss our COLA, and that's a cost of living raise that we give out each year to adjust for the different financial issues that are happening throughout the country.
Oh, are you going to have public comment on that report?
Excuse me?
The report you just presented, are you going to have public comment on that?
I mean, we don't need to, but would you like to say something?
No, we'll- Ed Slavin, box 3084, candidate for seat 4. Post office box 3084. Commissioner Martha Gleason had a number of questions she asked about the 41% cost overruns. I'd like to hear some response to that, and I'd like to hear lessons learned from learned counsel, and the fact that we didn't have a construction manager over the project, and we blew 41% cost overruns. That's unacceptable. I am just amazed at the mismanagement at the district. And I think Dr. Hsu needs to retire. And I think Mr. Weaver needs to retire. And I think Mr. Hanna needs to retire. And DOJ is in Florida. There's going to be a Florida DOJ. They'll be investigating. And I understand that the Inspector General of St. Johns County is also going to be investigating. And your PR efforts are commendable, and your education efforts are commendable, but we waste too much money here. And there is a huge surplus that is not adequately explained to the public. And Judge Litt, my mentor, the former chief judge of the U.S. Department of Labor, said that any government budget could be cut by 10%. In St. Johns County and in this district, we don't even try. And our budget writing processes are deeply flawed. And I would like to hear you respond someday to Commissioner Martha Gleason's critiques about the DVEC and the cost overruns. Y'all never treated her fairly. She resigned in protest at the mismanagement here. But her spirit lives on, as does the spirit of my mentor, Jeannie Jackson Moeller, who was the chair of this district. And the district wanted to buy a helicopter for $1.8 million.
Well, we're talking about the DVEC.
I'm talking about mismanagement. Please don't interrupt.
We'll keep on the topic.
I'm on the topic of mismanagement and DVEC. And you constantly interrupt speakers in public comment. That's inappropriate. You're a control freak. You shouldn't do that. You should treat the public with dignity, respect, and consideration. You didn't treat Commissioner Gleason with dignity, respect, and consideration, and you don't treat me with dignity, respect, and consideration. And in fact, I have pending records requests. And I would like you to agree now on the record to mediation by Pat Gleason in the State Attorney General's office. I asked that in opening non-agenda public comment. Nobody responded. Will you agree to mediation? Yes or no? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Say something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, yeah. About the Disease Regular Education Center. Last year, board gave city 4.5 million. No, nothing over. So far, we have not reached the 4.5 million already. Have not yet. Still on the budget. That's about the middle resolution. So the 40% budget over budget, I don't know how to figure out. In 2024, we didn't budget for anything for the education center because we thought it should be finished by end of 2023. Then later, COVID, everything, pandemic, postpone, everything double. That's the reason the board in June made a resolution, very clear, 4.5 million, no, not over. We still under 4.0 million. So I don't think how can we over budget it. Thank you.
I'm still waiting to see the financial audit that shows the 40%, because that's not a number that anyone at the district has seen. And so I'd love to see that report when you have it, Ed. So for the COLA raise, we can go to Dr. Shu.
Thank you. Yeah, it's our CFO, Mr. Hanna, and did the search every year same. In April, we proposed that cost for living, that's for budget purpose. We have some kind of certain percentage, so then we can start a budget. Most of the cost is personnel and benefits. Yeah, based on the last 2 months, February and March, so the cost average about a little over 3%. We don't know next few months what's happening. So I recommend 3% for cost for living. Then we have the number that we can start a calculation for the budget. In May, we give you the draft budget book. That's my recommendation. I would like a board motion to peruse 3% cost for living, then for budget purpose. Then we still have so many months until last week of September. So finally, public hearing, anytime we can adjust, depend the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shu.
Mr. Hanna, could I ask you a couple questions? I think each year you share with us this report, the
Yes,
Bureau
ma'am.
of Labor Statistics report.
Uh-huh.
And I know in the past, after COVID, it took forever to get this and that, and there was a paper or a toilet paper scale and a gas, and what, if anything, have you heard on the streets of accounting about what different districts are doing to prepare for the potential effects of the tariffs?
I mean-
And will that affect us?
I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics is actually the most accurate data. We've historically followed the all items less food and energy method because usually gas and food are the highest, but this is the one time you have both of those numbers almost being equal. So there hasn't been any real spikes in food, and gas usually spikes and then food follows it because the farmers need fuel, machines run on fuel. So not huge spikes in the last 12 months on gas has caused food not to spike. So both those numbers are about, and that's a national average. And as we have companies that we buy things like Amazon, it's becoming a national economy, not as much regional on a lot of items. And then people are working remotely from all over the country. So, I think that this is the best number to use, and that's what Social Security and the rest of the government uses, is this. But as far as like local trends, there's statistics that more people have moved out of Florida recently because it's harder to live here. The housing prices went up, and when they did increase the interest rates, the Fed fund rate, we haven't seen, the housing prices haven't come down enough yet still. I think they're going to start dropping more. So that so locally that can cause some housing issues, which is going to affect these numbers probably next year. People just haven't lowered the prices on houses yet enough. But I think this has always been a really good indicator of what the economy is doing everywhere. Sure.
I'd just like to add to the conversation as just some discussion that we know this area is the most expensive area to live in Florida. And so I think that our employees should get a 1% bump up for this, from this 3%, at least, to accommodate for the prices. If the average is 3%, but the average cost of stuff is not as expensive as it is in St. Johns County, and I know that many of our employees are suffering and having to live in other counties because they can't even afford to live here because the rent is so outrageous. So I think that we should consider moving it up to 4% or even more. But like Dr. Shu said, we could decide on a general number tonight, and then if we want to raise it or lower it, we would have the ability to do that before we vote on the official budgets. So that gives us some time to think about it. If we think, if all the prices go up and we go, oh, well, we need to go up to 8, or, oh, we can drop it back down to 3 or 2. So you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think 3% is a good starting point, although if the national energy index is at 3.1 and it's a little more expensive to live here, maybe a little bit higher. So that's definitely something we should ponder and discuss. As far, I would have to run some numbers to get the correct percentage, but at least 3%, yes. I would agree with that.
I agree.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay, so is there a motion on the table to approve a 3% COLA raise for the
I'll motion.
district? I have one motion. Do I have a second? We have a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, and that is with the intent that we can edit the number,
Yes.
if needed, compared to what the economy's doing. All right. Now we'll move on to our number 3 discussion. So this is a discussion, no motions are needed, but we're talking about our 5-year work plan. And what do we really want that to look like? Before I had given you guys a SWOT homework to do. Do you all have any ideas for the SWOT that you'd like to?
You said you have given that, or when?
2 months ago.
You gave it to me?
So, we could get you.
I need to know.
We didn't do our homework.
You didn't do the homework.
I've never even seen it, so.
Oh,
Maybe Dr. Shu grabbed it.
all
and
right,
read it.
well, before Dr. Shu gives up his plan, I've got a few things. I have a lot of things, but I'm just going to pick a couple of the top ones. So the SWOT analysis is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that I've spoke of before. I think one of our best strengths are our employees. Our employees are public servants that give every single day to protect the public, and that's a very commendable thing. And not every district has employees that are loyal to the public like you all are. I think that's our best thing. Another thing is we always deliver and upkeep our mission. I think that our mission statement could use a little bit revising, so that's something we could think about in the future. I think we have a high number of innovation, publications, our opportunities. I think it would be really fun to start a monthly newsletter, and that could go maybe in partnership with the DVEC, and let residents know, they can sign up, and we can say, we did, 2,000 service requests, or we've seen a lot of these mosquitoes in this area, and kind of like just some information that the public would like to know. I'd love to get our SIT program up all the way and running. And some years back in our 5-year plan was to become the Northeast Florida mosquito control district. Now with the new bill that passed last year, we would have to certainly have legislation pass that, so that might not be something we'll be thinking about this year, but maybe in the future. I think another opportunity that we have is to connect with our veterinarians more. I try to stop by and drop off flyers and talk about heartworm, but it'd be nice to have maybe a veterinarian day where we could invite a bunch of doctors over, have maybe what I like to think of as like a night at the museum where they can come and learn about, what we do and how that helps protect pets all over. Weaknesses, I think we are probably at least at half the level of staff that we need. I think our employees do more than one job, and while that's amazing, you should be paid for more than one job, or just do the job you have. So I think looking into raising budget levels to hire more staff. Our budget is very low. Our millage rate is the lowest in the state, and that's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing, because we really watch our pennies, but that's one of the things we're very proud of, is we're very conservative with our budget and keep a great eye on it. Another weakness is I think there's been a little bit unclearness of policy where people are interfering with day-to-day activities. And so commissioners, the general public, we're not supposed to be interfering with the day-to-day activities that take place here. We're not supposed to be making phone calls and walking in and asking Scott to print us stuff and asking somebody else to do other stuff. So that's something that we could all work on. I would like to have a PR person, as I've said, and I also think it would be a great idea to look into hiring a business director. And I think one of the biggest threats that we face, and mosquito control and public health faces, is misinformation and groupthink biases. We also are having a lot larger mosquito populations than we have in any other years. I think, 5,000 service requests last year? So that's double what we've ever had before. All right, and then pesticide resistance. But that's all mosquito control. So our team is working on fixing that. So those are just some things to think about in the next 5-year plan. And Dr. Shu, if you'd like to give us your views.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, now is the budget season. The end of this month will be correct wish list for next year. Every year, same procedure. Usually, Department of Agriculture give a budget instruction, nothing no more, because always every year same thing. So the next 5 years, this is part of our TG plan. Request a publishing website. Also, the annual every year, we need to publish our goal and measure in the website. Need every year need to update that. First, I think about next 5 years, what we need to emphasis. From that prisoner, the labor is most important. So they look at the next 5 years, currently we have 39 full-time. Include 3 positions is like a contract, because CDC funding and grant funding. But I don't know next year what's going on. We have no idea. Can we still receive every year $300,000 to $500,000 grant? I'm not sure current, yeah. So the factory cutting definitely affect this issue. So we look for counting, no matter what's happening, still growth, population and more. Our sole request still increase. Also vector mosquito shift, species shift from a woody area, now the more urbanization, start from a more continuing breeding mosquito, more dangerous mosquito. So that's also storm drain, more species storm drain. We need more change our emphasis. So that's the reason many homes has collect rainwater, real mosquito by themselves. So the education, medicine more important. Also, we are counting, look at last year, couple million visitors. We breed lots of possible breed pathogen from other country. Like 2023 malaria outbreak in West Coast. We are tourist area, #1 in the first city in the USA. Protection of tourists is very, very important. if anything outbreak mosquito-borne disease will affect our restaurant and hotel and medicine. So that's our revenue, counting revenue, probably around 74% coming from tourist industry, related to tourist industry. That's very important, yeah. So we need a really doing good job to make sure and our citizen and the tourists are safe. There's a person I look at around 40 to 45, maximum 45. So they look at the 5 year, each year has 1 or 2 increase. I hopefully continue to get some kind of grant and for other position. For the equipment, really need to update. Currently, I believe next 5, 10 years, AI technology, robot, everywhere. We have to looking for the quickly update our equipment and update many kind of issue. You know, the communication and 20 years ago, cell phone, now it's used very popular. I'm sure the AI technology, robot, you feature everywhere. You just get in, see the cleaner in the put it there. They can clean the basic floor. We look at the many manufacturing and even going to a bank, going to that grocery store, self-checkout, self-check-in. You can put it in, check-in, make a appointment, many things here. We cannot unlimited growth of people, number of people. Compare, have to update our technology. Third facility, we do need a one storage building. Last year, bought a table. So we continue budget there. Because you can see the vehicle, everything outside. Also, still have 3 shades still there. So that means you need AC, need protection equipment. Each equipment is $3,000. We have very expensive with the protection there. And fourth, we need to concern about exhibition service. And we don't need to take over other accounting program. We have air capability. We have the very quality, high quality staff. Like a workshop, they come in here, get a continuing education credit, not far away. Like Jacksonville and neighbor county all took advantage. So that you not use our disease vector education center, and your workshop and medicine come here. So it's very close, you get here. Then other thing you can think about it, and develop more MOU, member understand from a clear accounting and for a punt accounting. So we have the capability. If that happen, after hurricane, after a week, we have the capability, we can help them. They just pay what we cost. So that's mostly no political binding. They can buy it everywhere, just everywhere. So that's why I would like emphasis and proposal. Next couple months, I'll work out some kind of draft with the staff and give a body some kind of draft, look at it. At least have a draft start a discussion. So the last thing, I really would like to propose a next year type of program review, like a peer review. Ask other the director, other special district director, other entomologists, other commission. Look at it, make sure our programs are the right direction. We're doing the right thing. That's how like every 5 years and a few years we did a program review. Ask come here, look at the climate, look at the field size, visit, look at the capability, equipment, interview our board member, interview our staff. We did several times already. That's the reason we get it today here. And the impact in the nation, impact in the state, impact in the world. That's why we make sure we spend money smartly. That's not only tax people money, it's our money too, my money too, your money too. We need to be very careful and provide a good service, keep the district still in good condition. Since we move here, every year $300,000-$500,000 grant easy. They're just looking for us, industry. So that's coming for, that's the reason why GLO's laboratory started medicine. That's a very good cycle. I hope the next 5 years really keep that longer, keep the district higher reputation, so they're more influencing. So that's just my suggestion. Anytime, open, please. You have anything, you can give my suggestion, writing to me, and meeting to me, talking to me. So we still collect the information. We work together. The team work, not only by Dr. Xu, not only by me. That's how the team, that's our mission. Here, everybody has just to build a building. Everybody has one piece of brick you can put on. That's a very, very important teamwork. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shu.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, I think that was great.
Mr.
And-
Chair, I'd like to speak on this as well.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yes.
So I know AI is here and it's making some big headway. We are going to need equipment. We're going to need to update our programs, our machines, our robots. We're going to need to store those assets. We're going to need interactive screens, the new AI screens. We're the best in the world. We're the best mosquito control district in the world, literally the Mecca. People from all over the world come here to us. So we need to represent properly. So we are going to need a lot of things coming up with this technology running rampant like it is. We're going to need technology grants. But my question is, are we going to be able to do this without raising the millage rate and keeping that money in the citizen's pocket?
If we can
That's
get
my
grants.
question.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to have to see. I guess we're going to have to wait until we come up with a plan and we'll go from there. But that's where my head's at. So that's my goal, is to keep the millage rate where it is and still be able to get us all of these wonderful things.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And I did have Heather print out, this is the Baltimore report, so it came out last year, but they did the report the year before, and that was when the Florida state legislature was thinking about getting rid of us. And so there was a third party hired, which is the Baltimore Group, and they did very, very thorough. I think all of our employees could talk about how thorough of a job this company did on us and all the other mosquito districts in the state. I'm sorry. And so it has a wonderful whole group of different how we run, what our financials look like, and this is from a place that really tried to find as much as they could wrong, and they did not. So I was hoping we'd have a lot of public here tonight, so I had Heather print these out so everyone could look at this and see not my point of view, not our point of view, but a third party from the Florida governor who says we are doing the right thing, our financials are good, our policies are good. We're a government organization, we're not a for-profit company. So it runs a little bit different than regular businesses. And that's why we need experts in the fields of government and the fields that you all are in as our employees. And I just want to, thank you for doing such a wonderful job. And it even highlights our 3 top goals. And since we're talking about our 5-year plan goal, I was just going to say it really quick.
What page is that on,
All
Chair?
right. 20. Our 3 top goals is protecting the public from the nuisance of mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases in St. John's, educating the populace on the importance of mosquito control, researching and providing training on new practices in mosquito control. And that lines up with exactly what we do and what we are trying to do. And so anybody watching at home, if you've got any ideas for us in our 5-year plan, email us, let us know. Any staff, you guys have ideas, this is all of our place, and I know we all want to make it the best we can. Thank you, Dr. Shu, for all your work on that.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Good evening. Ed Slavin, box 3084, edslavin.com. My father was bitten by a mosquito in Sicily in 1943 as a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. He got malaria. And I know firsthand from his suffering, a lifetime of suffering with chills and fever, the sequelae of a mosquito-borne disease. 1 million people in the year die from the most dangerous animal in the world every year, and that's the mosquito. And I appreciate the work that Dr. Shu does and the work that the district does, but we didn't hear, well, first of all, Dr. Shu's presentation, sir, I can't understand you after all these years. You need to do written reports. You need to do written reports with good grammar.
It's in the
It's a one-page item.
Hold hold on.
He went
You're
on-
supposed to be talking to me.
Yes, ma'am. He talked to me, so I talked to him like a person would. Anyway, he needs an editor. We don't need a PR person. We need to respond to our records requests. It's been a year. A year. And there's no excuse. Are y'all going to agree to mediation by Pat Gleason, the Assistant Attorney General?
We have not received anything from Pat Gleason.
No, I asked you to agree to mediation by Pat Gleason. You won't receive anything from Pat Gleason until you agree to mediation by Pat Gleason. I have been asking this district for months to agree to mediation by Pat Gleason. Now, if you agree, please say so now, and we can both write her, and she could start mediating the open records requests. But to ignore me meeting after meeting after meeting, that's disrespectful. And I don't care how many PR, the county now has 8 PR people. St. Johns County has 8 PR people, which I consider to be waste, fraud, and abuse. We don't even need 1 here if you comply with the law. And I didn't hear in this entire discussion any discussion at all about legal compliance. We need to be a law-abiding district. We need to be a district that listens to the people. You don't listen. You didn't listen to Commissioner Gleason. She quit in protest. The district spends way too much money. A former commissioner, not Commissioner Gleason, said Rudy likes to spend money. That's the problem here. And this district board lacks the perspicacity and the independence to stand up to him. Jeannie Moeller did. Commissioner Jeannie Jackson Moeller did. But I don't think we need a PR person. And Dr. Shu actually joked, and it's on film, he actually joked that he wanted to charge me, I don't know, $900,000 for my records requests?
$1 million.
$1 million. Oh, $1 million.
understood my English.
It's not funny. Joking about violating the open records law in front of your council and on TV? That's really sick. This is wrong. We need internal controls. We need provisions for employees who have concerns to be heard, and be heard by someone who cares and who can act on their whistleblower concerns.
I agree. That's why we had her hired.
Okay, what's she doing on whistleblowers? How is she going to protect employees who want to blow the whistle? Why do employees leave here, and what do we know about why they leave here? I think they leave because maybe it's a hostile working environment for some of the employees. We can do better, and we will do better. Ed Slavin, candidate for seat 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will go on to,
So could we have an answer, please, about mediation? Yes or no?
why do we need to have mediation?
I would not, please,
It's
I
free.
wouldn't advise you answer that question. And I have an attorney's report, I'm happy to address that legal point, but I would not advise you answer that question at this time.
It's free. And it would mean you would comply with the law finally.
Nothing's free, Mr. Slavin. I'm kidding. So,
All right, so we'll go on to our director's reports.
Thank you. First, our surveillance program, like a CDC trap and the center checking for our virus surveillance, all started this week. So thank you for the surveillance team and our science team help. Quality checking everything there. Second, our seasonal employee and the intern student and the hiring. So there will be some intern start already. Some seasonal start will be May 3rd. Thank you for the team and the manager team and the interview. So far, we interview a bunch of people. Hopefully found the good one and fill the summer. Third, about that budget start already. So we collect the wish list and each department manager and submit their wish list or need list by end of this month. And our CFO and I work on for draft and have a manager discussion, what we need, what we need to present to the board. And in May 8, we'll give you a draft budget book, everything that with each item, how much we need, what's our proposal, and with evidence, so justification where we need. Every item we have justification. And the other thing about the auditor selection committee, that's we following board the resolution, and we publishing our website, publishing in some record, And our former commissioner, Lisa, asked publish pound visual record. So we contacted some people, CPA, asked their volunteer who wanted to be the member. So far, no any application. So hope this item will be in May board meeting after the auditor report, because the current tax season next week is finished. In May, auditor give annual auditor report. Then other item about the auditor selection committee. Then board make a decision. So what we can do for the auditor selection committee. So other thing that about that budget issue, still the budget issue. What you really need, what you board once you wanted to see next year, and just let me know. We open anytime. Give me calling, shoot me email, and talking. The kind what you wanted to see. I just try to put it on the budget draft. Then I will have a few months of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shu.
Wonderful. Ms. Hodges?
Okay. Yes, so I've just got a few things to report on. As Dr. Shu said, with respect to the auditor selection committee, I just noted in his report, it says the district will publish the RFP for the 24-25 auditor service soon. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that once you're going to have to waive your policy for the auditor selection committee if you don't have the volunteers. By statute, you have to have at least one commissioner. You can't have 3 commissioners serving on that committee. And the purpose of that committee is to solicit the auditor, come up with the minimum qualifications. So, that's a process. So I agree, concur with Dr. Shu that next month you should take some action. And in order to move forward with the committee with all 3 of you sitting on it, you would need to waive your policy. And then just remember again, once the committee's in place, that's also a process because you've got to develop that RFP, then advertise the RFP, grade, evaluate, then select. So we just, want to make sure that we're keeping on track with that so that we are in compliance. And we'll do that in May.
On that regard, it's been like 4 months, and we haven't had anybody apply.
No.
Where do they advertise?
Some auction record newspaper
reads it.
on the video where we do it after. We doing as much as possible. Most by most, we see the CPA. I ask a couple CPA. No,
Do
sorry.
you advertise in accounting journals?
Yeah,
Through the chair,
Yeah.
people online can't hear. If,
All right.
yeah.
All right, let's just keep it to the attorney in the chair that we're talking. All right.
Okay, so that, I wanted to talk about that. The travel policy, there's a reference in here that the travel policy's done. We're still working on that, and what's anticipated, this is in the director's report, that at your next committee meeting, we'll come with a draft, and then we'll solicit input from the 2 committee members, unless Commissioner Gardner wants to join, of course. We always welcome more commissioners to join that policies committee. But there still may be some back and forth. I just want to manage commissioner expectations. The travel policy, you'll see an actual draft. We'll talk about that. We'll get your input. We'll go back with another draft, and then we'll submit it to the board for approval. That's the way the policies committee is intended to be. You talk about it, input, drafts, perfect, then it comes to the board for final approval. I do want to give you an update on the commissioner bonuses that were issued in 2023, and then in 2024, there was a motion by the board, to rescind that. So, here's a status on that. You heard earlier when you were going through the budget amendment, all of the wonderful things I've been working on for the district. This is another one. And so the update at this point in time is that I am still doing my fact gathering on that topic. And so what does that fact gathering includes? It includes me talking to your former councils It includes me talking to other mosquito control districts. I have a call coming up next week. I do have a call on Monday with the Attorney General's office to talk about just the process of submitting an opinion. It includes me doing research based on what some of your former attorneys have given me in terms of, their perspectives on what has been done in the past. It also includes me, looking at several different statutes, not just, Chapter 388, which is the specific general statute for mosquito control districts, 112, Part 3, which is your ethics statutes. But it also, of course, includes me looking at the district's own charter, which was a special act that was approved by the legislature, as well as Chapter 215, 425, which is the extra compensation law under Florida statutes that permits governmental entities to give bonuses to employees. So there's a lot of work to be done, and just so that you know, you just can't call the Attorney General asking for an opinion by phone. There actually is a process that we have to go through, and I don't think that the last action that you took meets the process to even be able to ask for an opinion. If you're a governmental entity such as yourselves, you really need, I've got to draft a memorandum of law, which makes sense, because if the Attorney General's office just took random legal questions, they'd be busy just doing that and nothing else. So one of the requirements is when you submit to the Attorney General's office is that your district attorney prepare a legal memorandum, which isn't just an email, which is what your former counsel did. It is a full-blown memorandum with case citations, AGO opinions. I'm mentioning this because we were talking about the legal fees and 10 hours a month. Well, this would be work outside of that 10 hours a month for me to produce a legal memorandum with case citations and everything that's necessary and proper to submit to the Attorney General's office. It also requires, a clear vote by the body on the question that's being asked. So what I would envision, if after I have my conversations, I finish my fact gathering, so the next meeting, I'll give you an update on my thoughts after I've completed my fact gathering. And if you want to proceed with getting that opinion from the Attorney General's office, I'd need to prepare a resolution, very clear, stating the question that we're asking. You need to adopt that by a majority of the board. I need to attach to that resolution my memorandum of law in order for us to proceed. The other thing I just want to plant the seed on, regardless of whether with the preliminary research that I've done, if there's a way or not for you to give yourselves or employees bonuses, if that's correct, at least under one particular general statute, 215-425, there are certain dictates that you need to have in place, and those dictates were not in place. And so I've had this conversation with Dr. Shu to the extent that in the upcoming year's budget, there's a plan to give employees bonuses. We would need to meet and have a bonus plan in place in order for you to be able to do that. So again, additional legal work outside of the 10 hours where I'm sitting here, reviewing sort of the board packet. So I just want to, put that on your radar. But give me until May to come back with some more thoughts on this issue, a plan moving forward, as well as looking behind us in terms of what, if anything, needs to be done. There may not be anything that needs to be done. But, the short of the long is that one is not fully cooked yet, and I'm still working on it. The last thing here that I did want to mention is the public records policy. I've had this discussion with Dr. Shu. If you would like, as a board, to have an item on your next agenda where we can talk about any outstanding public records requests, that could be an idea for you. That way, that might give an opportunity for somebody like Dr. Qualls to talk about all the work she's been doing behind the scenes and the work that I've been doing with her. I can tell you that in looking at, I haven't went behind Dr. Qualls and all of the work that she's done, but certainly about 80% of the work that she's done, she's been working with me, and I can tell you that at least 80% of those requests are not, in my legal opinion, public records requests. They are operational questions that members of the public are asking, and the law is very clear that under the public records law, you do not have to respond to operational questions. You do not have to create records. You do not have to provide information pertaining to the records. All of this is very true, tried, and tested in the case law. And so I'm very comfortable with at least 80% of what I've seen has appropriately been the response of, this is not a public records request. But I've had the conversation with Dr. Shu to put something on the agenda so that you can have a little bit more detail about that and maybe even a presentation. Just for your own information, there is in Florida statutes a public records mediation program that the Attorney General can do. But in my legal opinion, again, based on 80% of the requests outstanding, there were a few requests that lingered, and to my knowledge, they were responded to, albeit late, and that was acknowledged, I think, by Dr. Qualls in a few of those requests. I don't feel at this time there's any mediation that needs to be warranted, at least until I can see the other 20% that I haven't seen. But the 80% that I have seen, I'm fairly comfortable that most of those requests were operational questions that this district is not legally required to respond to under the public records law. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer.
I think maybe people could have been confused previously about that, where public records requests were operational issues, and so staff possibly might have thought that if it's operational, like, not to answer it or something, but they need to answer it by saying this is not a public records request.
Correct.
Yes.
Anytime, exactly, Chair. Anytime somebody submits a request under the guise of a public records request, if it truly is not a request, it's going to be one or three answers. This record, you identify it is a public records request. If it is asking for a true record, either it's yes, the record exists, here's the record with any redactions that are appropriate for exemptions and confidential material, or either it's no, this record does not exist, or it's this is not even a public records request because it's just a question about how the district is running its operations. And I think it's very important that when members of the public, to help and educate the members of the public, when they're submitting questions that are not asking for records, that the appropriate response isn't even there are no records that exist. It should also include this is not even a public records request. It's a question.
So a question or a statement cannot identify
Right.
as a public records request.
Correct. And just to be clear, the director
But you
can
do have to
choo-
respond. And I didn't mean to cut you off, correct?
Wait, what's that?
You do have to respond to, even if it's just a statement.
I think that's appropriate. Absolutely. I mean, because a lot of times it is confusing, and not everybody is a lawyer, and not everybody, I'm picking on Mr. Slavin, but he's well educated on, public records law, for example, but not everybody's like him. And so I think when a member of the public sends an email, guys, under the umbrella of this is a public records request, even if it's a question that is not asking for a record that exists, which is what public records is all about. Public records is about records. If the records exist, we have to give them to the public in due time. I think it's appropriate for staff, and I've had this conversation with Dr. Qualls, to respond.
Right.
It's not a public records request. If it is asking for a record, either the record, so it validly is asking for a record, either the record exists or the record does not exist. You see that kind of distinction?
Absolutely.
And, to the extent that Dr. Shu chooses to answer questions, I'm not dictating, because I can't, whether or not your director chooses to answer questions every time the public sends in questions, that's his policy call to make. I just want to make sure Dr. Shu and the staff is clear that when somebody is simply asking a questions about the operations of the district, why did you spend $5 million to build the education center, or whatever that number was?
That's not a public.
That is not a public records request. Okay,
Makes sense.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Sure. And while you're walking up, I just want to say that over the last few months, we've been working very diligently to figure out all of your records requests and get those done. And so if there are specifics that we're still missing, if you could let us know
Well,
what those are.
the staff lacks communication skills. And let me tell you, back in 2006 and 2007, after John Sunderman and Jeannie Jackson Moeller, it's Ed Slavin, Box 3084, edslavin.com. Back in 2006 and 2007, when Jeannie Jackson Moeller and John Sunderman were elected to this board, the district was very cooperative. And Gina LeBlanc personally helped me when she was the education coordinator. I was impressed with her. For 3 days, I went through 5 large cartons of documents that were the documents that Jeffrey Dobson, the district's counsel, had on the district's business. And she basically babysat me and made sure that I wasn't going to waltz off with the records. That approach no longer exists at the district. Now we have a policy of bullwarism, which is a Supreme Court term in a labor case involving the General Electric Company, where basically they had an anti-union manager named Lemuel Boulware, and his attitude on anything the union asked for was, no way. And the Supreme Court found that that was, or affirmed a case where a lower court found that was an unfair labor practice. Well, this is worse than an unfair labor practice, folks. We're trying to find out about issues relating to the mosquito control district and waste of funds and matters of public concern. And they stiffed me for a year. No one's apologized for that. And this gentleman over here, Dr.
You
Shu,
point me.
this gentleman over here, using the term loosely, Dr. Shu, he might be a scholar, but he's no gentleman. And for a year, he has stiffed me. And this is massive resistance, just like during the South in Jim Crow. It's bullwarism, it's massive resistance to First Amendment protected activity. And it's like my mama took me once to see a speech in 1970 by Jack Anderson, the columnist, the investigative reporter. And he had a phrase, they cut off the news at its source. And I think it's shocking that the chair would suggest we need a PR person when maybe we need some manners and some basic respect for human rights, for our rights to get our information requests responded to promptly and not a bunch of malarkey. And when the chair actually said on the record in this meeting, on camera, that she doesn't know why we need mediation, I think we need a new chair. And I think we need a new director. And I think we need a new business manager. And we definitely need a new CFO. You're not respecting the public. You're not communicating. And the chair wrote me a letter and email and suggested that we meet. She's never set a date for the meeting.
That's because you laughed at my email and said that it was.
You interrupt me again. You just interrupted me again. You always do that. And the board members talk back and forth like it's a family dinner. You interrupt each other and you interrupt the public. Stop it. Don't do that again. Respect the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Mazzota?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and enjoying this wonderful meeting with us on this beautiful April day. It's so nice outside. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you again next month. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Gray?
I don't have any comments.
I just have a couple. This week and next week, we're celebrating the Florida Mosquito Control Awareness Week. And as I have for the last, I don't know, 6 years probably,
Yeah.
I go to the City of St. Augustine's radio station and talk about what we do for the City of St. Augustine with mosquito control. We usually record 2 interviews, and along with those interviews are some social media posts. They had a wonderful post but due to the backlash of a few people, they removed it. So that's very unfortunate for the district. But that interview will still be out, and we'll still be talking to the public. It's always a very highly rated interview, and it talks about what we do and what our customers can expect, the public can expect. And so that'll be out next week. So make sure to talk to the public, talk to your friends, and let them know, because it is Florida Mosquito Control Awareness Week. We do have the most mosquitoes of any state, and we're going to make sure they don't travel up north to get us. They can stay down south and spread or push, but they're not coming here, right?
We'll get them. We'll get them.
So next May 8th at 4 p.m., we will be conducting our next policy meeting. And then at 5 o'clock, we will be at 4 o'clock, we're going to have our policy meeting. At 4:30, we're going to have a budget workshop. And then at 5 o'clock, we're going to have our next board meeting, and we will see you there. Thank you for coming. Adjourn.
It's too little time for this.